When I started, I was a resident in Guernsey and had a manufacturing company there. I had an agent in Paris called Herbert Bachman, who was an American with a French wife, and I was over visiting him, discussing distribution, etc. And whilst he was on the phone and I was sitting opposite, the shelves behind him were lined with the products that he sold throughout Europe. And in the corner of one of them I spotted a bottle of salad dressing. And while he was talking, I focused in on it and I saw this little drawing that looked like Paul Newman. So when he came off the phone, I said, Herbert, that thing up there, is that Paul Newman, the actor? And he turned and he looked at me, oh yeah. He said, I said, and I sort of flip it away, I said, geez, I said, he must have got a bob or two to stick his face on a bottle of salad dressing. And he said, no, actually it's his own product, he makes it. And that started the conversation. I said, what do you mean he makes it? And he said, well, he manufactured this as a hobby for friends, and then he got the local grocer to sell it, and it mushroomed, and then he decided the profits from it he would give away. So he's putting them into a new fund to build a camp in America for children who suffer from cancer, to give them a holiday. And I mentioned to Bert that my wife and I raised funds for cancer research. This was our commitment because of the death of a very close pal of mine who were kids whose daughter, little girl, died of leukemia. So we raised money, so we had over the years became interested in children with cancer. So while discussing this with Bert, he said, well, you can have that stuff, and he called his secretary, he said, give Joe all that bump on Paul Newman stuff. And there was no address, it was just a New York address of the distributor. So when I got back to Guernsey a couple of days later, I wrote a letter to the firm on the label saying would they pass this other letter on to whoever was in charge, never assuming it would be Paul Newman, because I knew it would be somebody who was working with them in their organisation. And my request was that would they consider allowing British children who have cancer to come to the camp. And the reason I was interested was because at that time, nowhere in the world was there such a facility. Paul Newman was the first one to think up this idea. There was things that help children with cancer, organisations that get the parents to come and stay in the hospital and accommodation near at hand. Wonderful organisation, but there was no such thing as a holiday venue for children with cancer. So Liz and I flew over and we went, and the camp was about 2/3 complete, and it was a cowboy town, farmed out from the idea of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, called the Hole in the Wall Gang Camp. And I don't know if you know where the name comes from. It comes from the movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, because historically the phrases get into the normal dialogue mantra of people are holed up in there, hiding, he's holed up in this house, or they had a canyon after they did the robbery. They get into this canyon and two guys up on the top could guard the entrance and hold off an army. And then the press then coined the idea of Butch Cassidy's gang. They nicknamed them, because they were holed up in this canyon, the Hole in the Wall Gang, this canyon. So Paul used that name for the camp. And it was built with a stockade round it, and all the little ranch houses, the cabins round it, and the saloon bar, everything, which is soft drinks obviously, etc. After a while they had meetings, and they spoke to Liz and I, and Prof Pearson and Hotchner said, the situation is this, we've had meetings, we have no aspirations to take children from anywhere else, it's for American kids only, but because you and your wife have taken the trouble to come over, we'll give it a trial, but just once. Now, we've gone fast ahead to maybe about 10 days later, the children are coming back, and at Gatwick, Liz and I are there, and all the parents are at Gatwick waiting for the kids, and we thought, this is the moment of truth. I mean, how did it go? Was it a disaster? Did the kids hate it? Did they love it? We had no idea, because it was all just trial and error. And as they came through pushing the trolley, the first I always remember was James Martin, a little boy from Glasgow, and he came out and his head was down, and I said to him, oh God, this looks awful. And they came through and he came back, hello James. I said, how did it go? And he said, raised his head, it was brilliant. I said, brilliant. And I said, you okay? And the nurse Mackenzie went out and she said, Joe, they're devastated. She said, they had the most wonderful time of their life. She said, and when they're leaving, she said, all the American children, about 200 odds, came to see them off. There were hugs and tears. And then she had to get to New York. She said, and they were depressed at leaving. And then they were an overnight, and then they're flying. She said, they're jet lagged and worn out, and they're depressed because they just loved it, they didn't want to leave. She said, the job was an outstanding success. So I thought, that's great. So that would appear to me. I thought, I wonder what will happen. And then it jumped about 2 weeks ahead. It was a Friday night, the phone rang. And this American voice said, can I speak to Joe Woods? And I said, speaking, and the guy said, this is Paul Newman. And I said, oh, hello. And he said, yeah. He said, listen, I'm at a board meeting at the moment and we're discussing your children that came to the camp. He said, and I thought I should give you a call. He said, because, recapping, he said, we weren't keen at all. It's never in our mandate to have any international children at the camp. It's a camp for America and that was it. We had no aspirations of expanding further than that. And he said, but you and your wife had phoned up and pushed us a bit and we agreed with conditions we would give it one trial. Well, we're unanimous. Your British children were the stars of the camp. And I said, really? In what way? He said, well, we laugh about it. He said, because it is hilarious. He said, because we've been discussing it here and we reckon that our children, American kids, their ears are attuned to every accent in America, Deep South, Bronx, Brooklyn, He said, they had never heard a kid from Liverpool before. And he said, your kids were wonderful. He said, and we're asking you now, will you do it again, only more? We want to include this in. So the next year I sent 4 groups out. And then I went over to Northern Ireland because it was part of the UK, and I got kids from the hospitals there, and then Southern Ireland, and then went to Italy, and then my friend Herbert Bachman then stepped in, and we got French kids. I got him collared in to help now, and that expanded the international thing. And then Paul said, well look, set up a hole in the wall gang camp charity. So I inaugurated the Hole in the Wall Gang Camp Fund, the registered charity in Guernsey, because that's where we lived, and Ernst & Young, the accountants, volunteered all the financial services free, and they formed the charity. They did all the paperwork. So that was started up in, I'll get the date for you later, I think it was 1989, and that started it. So that was the first thing abroad anywhere, and from that little kernel it spread out all over Europe and the rest of the world. That's how it started. That was quickly followed by Paul, who became quite good friends, and he said, how about a camp? Get a camp for England, as they always say. But I had an idea at that time, because I was having to raise the money for all the logistic things, and what we did, we were all volunteers. The lawyers were voluntary, the accountants, Ernst & Young, were voluntary. We never took any salaries, never, and our expenses we donated to the charity because they got a tax allowance on it. So it was all volunteers. So the idea of raising a phenomenal amount of money to build the camp and the time it would take, it would be forever. So I had got this idea that what most camps consist, all camps consist of, catering facilities, dining hall, recreational hall, sports hall, playing fields. Now, where have you got those? In public schools. And the majority of our children are available at the holiday times. This is in the beginning. Since Kevin and other guys, I don't know, we've expanded now. It's a wider spectrum now. But in those days, our children, because they were only cancer kids, were generally available in the holiday seasons, because if they weren't in hospital, they were at school. And if they were in hospital, they couldn't come to the camp. And we worked on the basis, we instilled into the hospitals, you pick the kids. The only condition we impose is fitness to travel. Being on chemo doesn't matter to us. We'll attend to all that there. So that was the parameters. So I then started looking around and I found a place which was a big charity for handicapped children, but they closed down in the summer. So I did a deal with them and took over, and we just moved in and that's what's happened since. Yes, Liz and I were over in Westport with Paul, and we're sitting down talking, and he was quite pleased about this place we got. And he says, what are you going to call it? And I said, I don't know. I said, it's a toss-up between calling it something very British, maybe Camp Nelson or something historic, or maybe something more like Camp Happy Days. And he screwed up his face, choking. I said, Joe, I'm fed up with these happy-go-lucky. He did this. He said, why not call it something crazy, something off the wall? I said, oh, okay. So anyway, we came home and I said to my wife, Liz, I've got an idea. I said, well, call it. No, sorry, Paul also said he liked the idea of getting the name Wall in it, which associated it, because all the Irish camp was called the Barrettston Gang Camp because it was Barrettston Castle. So I said, I've got an idea. She said, what's that? I said, well, call it the Off the Wall Gang Camp. So I rang him up. I said, I've got a name for it, Paul. He says, what's that? I said, the Off the Wall Gang Camp. And there was a pause. I said, well, that's what you said. Call it something off the wall. And he said, oh yeah. Oh well, okay, fair enough. You go ahead, call it that. So Elizabeth said, the Off the Wall Gang Camp. Sorry, the Over the Wall Gang Camp. And as I say, I was a bit huffed and miffed, and I said, well, what's so good about that? And she said, well, do you remember those old movies we've seen when we were young, James Cagney, and that, when he was in the prison and he escaped, they said he went over the wall. And she says, do you remember? She's quite a clever girl, was Liz. She said, do you remember the thing? A lot of the kids came with T-shirts that were buying, and it got them printed in the hospital, and it said on the front, chemo sucks. Because although they needed the chemo, it was a horrible routine, and the kids had this chemo sucks. She said, well, it's the same connotation. It's like the old James Cagney said, they're escaping, they're getting over the wall and ran for it, So, and I said, well, fair enough. So I phoned Newman, and it went through just more or less a dialogue, I'm telling you, and he liked it. So that's how it came.
Yes.
I would like to see it expand along the lines which Kevin and his colleagues are, and they have done this, but they want to take it further. And the concept of having a built camp, and they've got an idea of a camp where they're going to incorporate other charities and invite them in to use the camp, which I think is a great idea. That's where I'd like to see it go.